Welcome back to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to talk about this Wailing Wall, which is the wall on the Temple Mount in Israel that you see all the U.S. presidents and senators and stuff going and putting on the funny little hat and then kissing, right? And the reason, there's always been something suspicious about this to me, but I've never really looked into it, and I got a great email from Harry who pointed out some really great stuff. So I'll give him credit for this. There's a link description below to a YouTube video talking about it and explaining it. It's pretty good if you want to watch that as well, or instead, either way, it's just the information here that's important. Now, let me tell you why this is important. Basically, Jesus said that the second temple, okay, so the first temple was destroyed when they went to captivity in Babylon, right? Then they came out of captivity, and then Nehemiah and them, Ezra built the wall, and then the second temple. The second temple was around when Jesus was alive, and then it was destroyed by the Romans after Jesus died. And so here's the important part. Like, let's just go to the Bible. Let's just look real quick what Jesus said. And this is Matthew 24, King James Version. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things, the buildings of the temple? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Okay, so if the Wailing Wall is the western wall of the second temple, then Jesus just completely lied. If Jesus completely lied, then he's not perfect. If he's not perfect, then from a Christian perspective, he can't be the perfect sacrifice for the expiation of sins, right? So just from a Christian perspective, you look at this Wailing Wall nonsense and you should be like, oh, that's one or the other is true. Either Jesus is God or the Jews are right, you know? So if Jesus is God, then the Jews are lying, and this is not part of the Western Wall. It's definitely not, like not even close, you know? It's in the general vicinity, but not even close. And I'm going to show you how that is, right? So basically, we have a historian of the time who thankfully wrote us books describing in graphic detail what was going on here, okay? What ended up happening. So basically, okay, let me take you to this picture real fast. I got to zoom it in. Oh, no, it's already zoomed in. Okay, check this out. So this is what the situation looked like. On the right side of your screen, you can see Antonia Fortress, which is a Roman fortress, and it's above the second temple on the left. And you see that walkway in the middle, and then there's a staircase past the walkway where Paul is on the staircase in Acts, right? With a 600-foot distance between the two. Now, the wall that remains is up there on Antonia Fortress. It is not related to the Temple of Jerusalem. Now, also, like, okay. Let me show you some more pictures while I'm at it, okay? So this is a picture of the Temple Mount here. I got this one and one more. So you see this right here? This is the Wailing Wall. Let me zoom in. This is where you can come kiss the wall and stuff like that, right? And so basically, Al-Aqsa's over here off screen, and basically you're going to have to say that this ginormous wall existed after I read you from Flavius Josephus saying that literally everything was destroyed except for the walls of Fort Antonius and the towers of Fort Antonius. I'm literally going to read you this from the historian at the time. You're going to have to say that giant wall stood from the second temple. That's absolute nonsense. Let's look at another picture. So here we got the Dome of the Rock, Al-Aqsa, which is off screen. This is the whole Temple Mount, Jewish quarter, Old City, Muslim quarter. Western Wall tunnel, unrelated to this. But look and here's the big old giant Western Wall. Look how small the people are. You're going to have to pretend after I read you this from the history that this is legitimate, and in no way is. Okay, now, when I showed you that picture of Antonia Fortress up above, let me show you some another verification of that, okay? So if we come over here to Acts 24 in the King James Version, we're going to see that okay, so people are mad at Paul in the temple, and all the city was moved, and the people ran together, verse 30, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. And as they went about to kill him, tidings came unto the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down from Antonia Fortress unto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paul. The reason why they came down is because they could look into the entire temple from above them, and above them is where the wall still remains of Antonia Fortress. Now let's go to, this is Josephus, okay? And so here's a quote where he's describing the structure of Antonia Fortress, right? And they talk about the cubits and all that. Whereas that which lay upon the southeast corner was 70 cubits high, from whence the whole temple might be viewed, because they were viewing down into the temple. And so went several ways among the cloisters with their arms or the Jewish officials in order to watch the people, that they might not attempt to make any innovations. For the temple was a fortress that guarded the city, as was the tower of Antonia a guard to the temple, and in the tower the guards of those three. Okay. And then if you want to know where this is at, let me go, because this is confusing to find. So this is Of Wars by Josephus, chapter 5, section 3, 4, section 5. Nope. Dang, it's all the way down here. Section 8. So if you want to look that up yourself, I'll put a link to a description to this page. And then if we come over here, we're going to talk about the same book, and we're going to talk about the destruction of the temple. So this is the same book, Of Wars or War of the Jews. Oh, War of the Jews. Sorry. And this is chapter 1, section 1. And they're describing the destruction of Jerusalem. And so the army had no more people to slay or plunder, because they remained none to the object of their fury, for they would not have spared any had there remained any other work to be done. Caesars gave orders that they should now demolish. Oops, I should do it up here so my picture's on the way. Caesar gave orders that they should now demolish the entire city and temple, but should leave as many of the towers standing as were of the greatest eminency. So these are the towers of Antonia Fortress and the city wall. That is Phasaelis, Hippicus, and Mariam. And so much of the wall as enclosed the city. So the wall that enclosed the city on the west side. This wall was spared in order to afford a camp for such as were to lie in garrison. So the towers were all spared in order to demonstrate to posterity what kind of city it was and how well fortified, which the Roman valor had subdued. But for all the rest of the wall, it was so thoroughly laid, even with the ground, by those that dug it up to the foundation. So they dug it up to the foundation because they were literally leaving no stone unturned. Not one stone on top of each other, just like Jesus said. It was so thoroughly laden to the ground by those dug it up by the foundation that there was left nothing to make those that came thither believe it had ever been inhabited. This was the end which Jerusalem came to by the madness of those who were for innovations, a city otherwise of great magnificence and of mighty fame among all mankind. Anyways, so we have this historian, and so this is a Jewish historian, right? And so he was basically in the revolt, and he was captured by the Romans, and then being an intellectual, they kind of made him write down the history of his people and then the war that had happened. So if anything, he would be, if he had a bias, he would be trying to, but he didn't know the future lie of the Western Wall. Like, he didn't know the future lie that they were going to say the wall to the Antonia Fortress, the wall to the city that the Romans built, because the Romans wanted to keep it there so that they could attest to their previous magnificence, because the city's now completely destroyed. You know, we also have history from hundreds of years later, like the 3rd century, saying that people came and there was just nothing left. And so you see that history right there, where they're literally digging up the foundations of stuff. Like, you could destroy something completely and not dig up the foundations. You're digging up the foundations. I feel like you're salting the earth of Carthage. You're just going above and beyond, you know? And you're going to say that enormous wall, like, let's just look at the wall again, can we? Because this enormous wall, you're going to pretend that this thing right here, right here, I'm sorry. You're going to pretend that this thing, how do I get back? Oh, I got to go like this. That this thing still stood while they were digging up foundations of walls and stuff like that. It's clearly a remainder from the old, and the reason why there's no towers and stuff is because even when people came there in the 3rd century, everybody was just grabbing random rocks and stuff, and random building materials from rubble and stuff like that, taking it apart and using it to rebuild different stuff. Anyways, so here's the deal, though. When the whole premise behind the Wailing Wall, right, is that they want people to come there, and they want them to put on a little hat, and they want them to admit that Jesus is not God. So that's what you're doing when now you may not understand that, but as watching all these people come and parade up there and then do this Jewish ceremony, You're just saying Jesus lied in that prophecy. Jesus is not God. That's what you're saying. It's an anti-Christian ritual. So it's like if you had a religious leader who wanted to partake in a Jewish ceremony, that wouldn't. I mean, it's like if you had a religious leader who, I'm sorry, a political leader, I meant to say, who wants to go on the Hajj with the Muslims. That's different than doing something specifically that says Jesus isn't God. That's what you're saying to your entire constituency. Unfortunately, the entire constituency doesn't understand that. I don't even think the people fully understand that are doing it, the politicians who are doing it, that this is denying Jesus. And so if you're not a Christian, this is still relevant because you could use this to argue to Christians that they shouldn't be supporting whoever is going to the wall. Otherwise, they're denying Jesus, And I just think it's a real interesting point. Now, in the video below, if you look at the reference below, the lady makes the point that there's an upper and a lower area, and the Antonia Fortress was up here, and that the second temple was here because obviously they were looking down. We saw the picture. But I have never been there, and I will never go there. But I don't understand from the picture. She says that the temple mount, what is the temple called on top of the Temple Mount? I'm tripping. The Dome of the Rock, of course. That the Dome of the Rock and stuff is, well, I can even take you back to this picture. You can kind of see some elevation here, but you can't total. And so she says that the Dome of the Rock, and I don't know if this is true or not. She says that the Dome of the Rock and this stuff is where Antonia Fortress would be. Because this looks like where Antonia Fortress would be. And that the area that the second temple was at is not owned by the Muslims. So the third temple could still be recreated. I don't know where it would be, like down here. I'm not sure exactly where it would be in relation to this. So I can't verify that part, but that's what she said in the video below. And if that turns out to be true, that would be an interesting thing. Because it would almost be like, I feel like if she's correct in that, I feel like the Israelis would just continue this lie. And they would say, no, we need to get rid of the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Like, we need to. Because that's where our third temple goes. Even if it went somewhere else and that land was open right now. Because I feel like this is part of their agenda and it's unrelated to what's true and not true. Just my opinion on that one. Anyways, I think this is interesting. I'm interested in knowing, do you guys know about this? Is this a thing you already knew about? You just didn't tell me in the comments below when I say give me good ideas. And also, if you got any good ideas, put them in the comments below for future episodes, because I'm really interested in learning stuff like this. And this is something new that I discovered thanks to Harry. Appreciate you, brother. And anyways, that's what I got for you guys. I hope you have a great weekend and hope to see you next week.